Hey y'all, it's Dana, the Marigold Shepherdess, and today I am going to bring y'all 3 spooky stories of things that have happened to me here on the farm. But first, I've got to feed these guys. So it's actually not nearly cold enough for this hat. It's only like 76 degrees out here, but I just finished making it and I'm proud of it and I wanted to show it off. So, yay me! I need 2 hands to get hay. So I've been living on this farm for about 16 years. This is From the Ground Farm. And a big part of the farm that I have a lot of people comment on all the time doesn't actually belong to me, but it's this property across the street, these woods. So these woods, ever since I moved here, have always been very hauntingly beautiful. But about 6 years ago, they went through and they did a thinning. And they removed about 40% really of the trees. And then after they did the thinning, they did a controlled burn. And the controlled burn got a little bit out of hand. And I know this because many of the trees had burn marks on them. You can see that one, whoops, right there. Many of the trees had burn marks on them high up on the trunks, and quite a few trees died. And you can't see the ones far in the back, but many trees back there have died. You can kind of see some leaning back there. And this created an environment that was perfect for the fairy birds, and the fairy birds moved in. And before you think, oh, she's making stuff up or she's losing her mind, by fairy birds, I mean the red-headed woodpeckers. And these red-headed woodpeckers, as I learned from some research, turns out that they'll actually form flocks and they'll nest together and they will pick a territory and they'll defend it quite violently. I've seen them chase off hawks, vultures, crows, and even mockingbirds. And anything that can get the better of a mockingbird has my respect. So they have been, and I call them fairy birds because they flit to tree, and you just see them for half a second and then they're gone. And they make this crazy trilling sound that I can't even describe. If you ever get a chance, look up the sound that red-headed woodpeckers make, because it's pretty haunting. So I dubbed them the fairy birds, and they have really lived up to that reputation because story number 1 involves what I believe to be one of these fairy birds. Okay, so I'm standing right here where the fence charger is, and it's a little bit lighter than this on the day that this happened. The sun was no longer hitting the tips of the trees across the street, but it was still high enough that there was a jet plane that was reflecting the sunlight back above the tree line. And I was looking at the pine tree across over there, and off of that branch right there, a bird takes off in flight and starts heading my way. You can see the bat. Did you see the bat go across the screen? And I have bats too. And so I recognized it was a bird. It had feathers. It had the black and white feather pattern of the fairy birds. And I was like, oh, it's one of the fairy birds. And it was flying right along here in front of the trees. There goes the bat again. And as it got to right here, and it was about to fly over those trees right there. It vanished. I don't know how else to put it. It was there and then it wasn't. I tried to figure out if it was the angle that I was standing at. As soon as it happened, I darted over and was like, where did that go? I didn't see it go anywhere. If it was going anywhere, it was headed towards the trees over there. And it was just gone. It was flat out gone, and I can't explain it. I tried to figure out if it went from being in the sky to going behind the trees and it getting lost in the trees, but it was in front of the trees the whole time and I never lost sight of it. It was just gone. It was there and then it wasn't. And it wasn't a bat, because bats will swoop and dive and you can lose them really easily. This was a bird. I was pretty sure it was a fairy bird. It was the right size. It had the right feathering. It had the black and white feathering, and it just disappeared. And I don't know why. Okay, so for the second story, this wasn't actually something that happened on my property, but I was on my property when I observed it, of course, across the street in the dark, scary woods. And I was standing right here. I had just gotten done doing chores. I had my bucket of eggs with me, and I had set them down for a second, and I was picking up the water hose, and I look over, and right there in the woods was just this blue this blue sphere of light. And I'm not talking about a little sphere. It was big. Like, it was quite the circumference. It filled up the space between those two trees. And it started right there, and it came down pretty rapidly. I only saw it for half a second, and it just melted into the ground and was gone. Yes, the road goes behind the woods there for a little ways, so all of this, the road is right there, and you'll see headlights come through the trees. But when they come through the trees, they illuminate things. This didn't illuminate anything. It was almost like it was pulling the light from around itself to light itself up. It didn't illuminate the trees, it didn't illuminate the ground, and it was just there, and then it was gone. Freaked me out. I am a little freaked out right now remembering it. Not the best, but that doesn't hold a candle to my next story. Okay, y'all, let's get serious, because this story creeps me out to this day. So, about 6 years ago, minding my own business, sleeping in my bed, around 2 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't know that yet because I was sleeping. And next thing I know, in my room, next to my bed, was a woman's voice speaking. And I would make Usain Bolt proud with how quickly I snatched that lantern. I'm in 1800s. That lamp on. And as soon as the lamp came on, the voice stopped. Now, a lot of people have asked me, what did that voice say? And I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you, because I have no idea. The voice was not speaking in English. The closest that I could get to as far as what I thought it might have been was maybe Hebrew. And that's when I told my mom this. That's when she brought up a very interesting point. You see, a neighbor told me, and I've done research on this and I've looked it up, that long before I came here, long before white Europeans settled this land, the Creek tribes lived here in Madison County, and in particular along where this road now exists. And I know this to be true because I have found things that have shown me that there were people here long before we were. Over the years, I've been finding bits and pieces of pottery, a piece of flint that's been shaped, pieces of jewelry that all appears to be Native American in origin. And my mom got this idea. What if the voice was a Creek woman speaking in her native language? Maybe she was upset that I was taking her things. Or maybe that had nothing to do with it at all. I don't know. But there you go. 3 spooky stories from the Ground Farm for your Halloween viewing pleasure. And if you've got any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, unless you're going to be nasty. And then I hope the Great Pumpkin skips your house this year. From the Marigold Shepherdess, you guys have a great Halloween and stay safe out there. Bye!